Welcome to another session of Meditations with Marini. So, you guys, I'm playing around with my camera, and sometimes my camera will just start on its own, and other times I can't figure out how to do the timer, so I'm gonna have to figure that part out. I'm trying to decide if I'm gonna get me something. I don't do my videos on my computer, I do them on my cell phone because it's just easier for me to upload from there. And so, um, I'm not sure. It just didn't come up tonight. But we're going to kind of continue in the vein tonight of what we were talking about on yesterday. And that was, well, there are a couple of things that happened in the video from yesterday where I was talking about men don't lead with your wallet. I mentioned that I wanted to pray, and then in the end, I think actually I ran out of time and I didn't get a chance to. So tonight, definitely we're going to say a prayer. And, I really just kind of wanted to pick back up from where we left off on yesterday. And one of the scriptures that I know that we talked about, I wanted to look at my history here. We talked about the scripture, I think it was Ephesians. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Ephesians 5:25. And, when that scripture talks about loving your wife as Christ loved the church, yes, Christ sacrificed himself for us. But if we really look at some of the things that also went on biblically, he also got upset about some things. I think sometimes with Christianity, we always want to make everything like so beautiful and it's wonderful and it's just great. But there are times when we have to, go into warfare. There are times that we have to really call things out for what they are not. And then there are other times that we have to stand in the gap for what it is that we know that God has called us to. And so I'm not going to be long tonight because, one, my family is kind of dealing with some personal things. And two, I just think that sometimes we just need to be a little bit more reflective. And so it may not be so much someone talking to you about something for a long period of time, but perhaps just making some points about things that would be beneficial to you to look at and see how you can revisit that as a part of your life. And so, I'm sorry. And one of the things that I know that I thought about after last night was when I was talking about how statistics show that 40% of men who filed, who went through with the divorce, regretted it or had some reservation about it. But 60% of those men did not. And what that says is that although women are the main initiators of the divorce process, it does not mean that there is not a high percentage of men who are unhappy in their marriages. And oftentimes, as we talked on last night, they are just not aware of they don't even have a clue of which direction to go in. And oftentimes, I think that it is more of a convenience for most men from the conversations that I've had with them at the barbershop and in the pool halls. It is more of a convenience of, I already know this person. I'm very comfortable. A lot of men are not adjustable. They don't like change. They could do the same thing over and over and over. Whatever their consistent component is, they're pretty good with that and they like it. It's comfortable for them. And any type of change or adjustment to that means that it's going to change their routine. It's going to change how they normally calculate things or how they process things. And so, when you really think about men willing to stay, it's been interesting again for me to have these conversations with men who have decided that, in the end, I'll just remain in this situation or this circumstance. And even in talking with, just having conversations with like my brother and his friends and stuff like that, most of them, they've been married. So my brother and his wife have been married maybe about 28 years this year. This might be their 28th or 29th year of marriage, but they've been together close to 40 years. They met when they were like 20 years old, and they dated, I guess it was maybe 12 years before they actually got married, somewhere around in there. But my brother oftentimes he's like, oh no, anything ever happened to her, I can tell you right now, I would never do this again. And I think a portion of that too is that they grew older together. They both developed, they grew, they've gone through a lot of different things together. And in their situation, it was not always like bad things. It wasn't a whole lot of hard growing pains, if you will. I think that people just develop and they become who they are, but their love language is still very strong, and that's a good thing. It's different now, but it's definitely one that you've seen the development of that love language over a period of time. So I don't know. I think my brain is a little scattered tonight, y'all. I got some news about my nephew, and I may have mentioned in a couple of videos back that he's been in the hospital for the past couple of weeks, and I feel like I'm here but not here. But I also feel like I needed to touch bases with you guys because of the fact that I had not had a chance to touch bases with you over the past couple of days during my weekend out. And so, today I think, if I'm really honest, I'm just thinking tonight about like what I would want love to look like as I go into my latter years. And so when I think about people who are willing to sacrifice themselves and stay in a relationship that is unhealthy, that does not give them a stretch to their own personal growth and process, it does not develop them, it does not give them any level of joy and happiness and things of that sort. As I enter into times like these, where today, I'm trying to comfort my family for news that we received, and knowing that if I was still married, I might just be going through the motion, and asking myself, would I rather be where I am now, which is single, but happy and joyous and beneficial to stretching myself, even doing things like starting this YouTube channel. This is so out of my it's out of my realm of what I probably would have done. I'm very comfortable here, but it's out of the realm of me usually taking the initiative to do something like this. Like I would typically, do it from behind the scenes, but I wouldn't necessarily always do it in the forefront. Even though I know that I'm called to the forefront, like I'm very comfortable in this place with you guys. And so when we think about love and how we want that to look, especially at our age, what sacrifices do we want to make in order to assure that we can receive that? What sacrifices are we willing to make in order to assure that we can give it? You know, relationship and marriage is work. It is not easy peasy, but it can be easier when it is done right. When it's done right, when it's the right people, and when it's those that are willing to make the sacrifice. I'll be honest with you, most of the men that I've talked with, sometimes there is more sacrifice on his end, and sometimes there's more sacrifice on her end. And what typically happens in the breakdown of a marriage is at some point, it's rare that you always get both parties that are willing to give at the same time. But typically when one comes back and says, hey, let's really work through this, then you kind of get that work that helps you to be more productive in your relationship. And so just thinking about when it said that scripture for Ephesians 5:25 is for Christ and how his love for the church. This love is described as a selfless and sacrificial love, mirroring how Christ gave himself for the church. And I think in the end, that's how I felt with my marriage. I felt that my marriage did not represent what I felt Christ represented to the church. And in the end, it wasn't really about just love. It was about what I really wanted my marriage to represent as a Christian, as a believer, and as someone who operates in a divine purpose for my life. I wanted that. Not just that's what God expects, or that's what I feel that he wants us to have marriage to look like. I wanted it. And so if both parties don't want it, then it's not going to work. And even when it comes to men, there are a couple of guys that have sent me a DM and they like, thank you so much for your videos. I appreciate what you said, because that is so true. I thank you for talking about men leading with their wallets. I thank you for talking about that no matter how much a woman makes, that she does not rule the household. And so, ladies, what I will say to you is, if you are in a position where that may be a component in your household, when is the last time that you sat down and spoke with your husband or your significant other about that matter? Like, when was the last time you asked him, how does he feel about that? When was the last time that you intentionally made sure that you gave him a safe space to be able to have that discussion, and there not be a repercussion behind that, so that he would then know that he has the opportunity to be honest with you. He can be vulnerable with you, and he can share those things with you. Or do you position him where he has to keep that information bottled up and he can't share it with you, to the point that then he finds another outlet to share it with? Because the one thing about men, they're different from us women. Men will not continue to try to knock down a door. They'll just create another avenue. And I want to do a video about that as well. I really want to talk about the outlets of, for those who have truly followed my channel, that my marriage, a portion of the reason why it did not work is because of cheating. And the one thing that my husband couldn't say, he couldn't say that it was because of denial. And so, ladies, I want to kind of tap into that. Did he step out because it was just an option, or did he step out because the door was closed? And I know many of you are going to say, oh, well, he just shouldn't have stepped out anyway. Well, if you keep denying the lion to eat, eventually he'll eat the keeper. So you starve the lion. Eventually he's going to eat. He's just going to figure out a different way to do it. So that's a video for a whole nother time. I think I already got a subject title for that one. I really think it's going to be hot. But I just want the men to kind of chime in. And ladies, I want your opinion as well. Give me some feedback. Get in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. I want you guys to click like. I'd love for you to share it with a friend. And I'd love for you to subscribe. And just tell me a little bit more about what you guys would like to talk about. What things would you like for me to dove into on this channel? And tonight we're going to call it a night. So you guys have a good one. Make sure you click like, share it with a friend, and subscribe.